Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is August 9th, 2024. It is a Friday for me, but Bitcoin has entered its Saturday candle already. We're going to be following up with Bitcoin's price chart here, from where we left off on Wednesday's video, which I did get a lot of good feedback from. And it seemed that people liked hearing that explanation. And we're going to kind of continue in that fashion, although we're going to keep the Bollinger Band set on here, kind of evaluating our charts based on trend first, support and resistance, volatility, and then momentum. We'll keep the Bollinger Bands on here, which are it's a kind of a trend indicator, kind of a volatility indicator as well, all in one. But we can evaluate trend pretty easily. Then we'll throw on support and resistance. We'll talk about how the volatility levels of the Bollinger Bands line up with those areas of interest of our support and resistance zones, both to the upside and the downside. And then we'll take a look at that momentum piece. Now, because it is a Friday for me still, and we're in the Saturday candle, we do need to be aware of what's going on the weekly. So we will look at kind of what to watch for on the weekly as well. Let's go ahead and get into this on the daily, though. So we're going to zoom in here, and we can see that Bitcoin, got fairly close. So it met the conditions both on support and resistance, on the support and resistance side of things on lower term timeframes, to move up to one of our bigger areas between 60,000 to 60,300 at the bottom side of that overhead resistance, and that 63,800. We saw Bitcoin actually spike up to around 62,800. And you'll notice that that is actually this close open right here. So nearly pinned it to the dollar here. So this prior downtrend before entering that short-term uptrend that spiked its high up at $70,000, we see that this high on a closing basis was hit perfectly here. And the basis band has actually moved down towards this. So the basis band is a 20 simple. Now, upon regaining this lower first and heading up, there's some precedence to say that Bitcoin, as long as it's sticking above this lower first here, which is going to be right around a support and resistance level at around 58,400, that is going to be an area that you want to see Bitcoin closing above to avoid falling back down and testing at least the close open lows down here by where the lower second is. But in terms of trend, this is just a downtrend. It's a downtrend break to a lower low, right? So unless Bitcoin can blast off to $70,000, it will not be seen as a deviation of trend, and this really does not look like it would be anyway. At minimum, to create some higher low structure, we could get a swing high, swing low from the Thursday high into the Friday low if we start seeing Bitcoin close back above the 62,800 level. In this case, on spot price, it's 62,755. That would not necessarily be a technical closing low, but it would be a valid swing high to swing low and then move on if it was going to start closing above around that 62,755, 62,800 region. That would be a little bit of a trend change. I still would like to see a wider closing trend change, but that's where I could see Bitcoin testing up to around $70,000, or at least up to around the lows here between the 64 to 65.5 area, right around these two lows on a closing basis. We see that it got fairly close to testing, the swing lows of the highs up here. Actually testing right into this swing low that came in at around that $60,000, 60,500 level. No, I'm sorry, 62,400. I'm reading actual price. My apologies. I'm a little tired. It's been a long week. Because Bitcoin only just tested up to 62,830. So that means it would have tested this wick, which did wick down into this high. It's still a downtrend. I've mentioned this before. What am I looking for? Unless it meets the criteria of like a swing high to swing low and then really regains its composure, I could see it testing up to around the $68,000 to $70,000. But realistically, I need to see structure built for that to even be a sustainable move back to the top side and not just a move for liquidity that's going to result in a lower high. So essentially, we still have this. So I'd be looking for something like this in terms of swing structure to go up and test. That would be valid only if it starts to move on within the next candle or so, maybe next two candles over the weekend. And, last weekend was a pretty liquid weekend when it came to the Sunday into Monday candle. I mean, even Saturday was a move down, but we got expansion on that Sunday candle that continued into the Monday drop. So, I can't really say that it's been quiet weekends now for a little while. I think if we go back a little bit here, even the prior weekend, we had the move to the top side. We had a little bit of sideways action over this weekend. When the Sunday candle opened, it set that low, lower low close, higher low swing that set off that move to the upside to $70,000. So, a lot of people ask me about what I think about the weekends. I just say be careful. It's usually a time that's either going to be quiet or a time for those in the game to play the illiquidity in the markets. So essentially, what I'd be looking for though is maybe a higher low or equal low that breaks wherever the high comes in, right? So if this is the high at 62,755 right here, I'm looking for a higher low or equal lows that go up, take out this last lower high. So I am expecting a lower high. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that is what I'm looking for. And I do want to note one of the main reasons why I'm looking for this in terms of trend. We do have a little bit of an uptrend. So we had a high here. This would be a valid swing high to swing low on the 12-hour. So there is a bit of trend going on here. So it could push up a little bit higher on a swing basis for the daily locally and pull off the first iteration that I was just talking about here. If it's going to get continuation, that's not what I wanted. So if it's going to get continuation, swing high to swing low and do the same kind of thing to push up and test the highs, then that's valid too. And I'd be keeping a close eye on the 12-hour though. If things get quiet over the weekend or this puts in another high, I would be aware of where momentum is. We're going to get to that in just a moment though. So that's a little bit about trend here. We do have, I think the 8-hour, has a nice swing, has a closing high, closing low, closing high. If it's going to do a closing low, it's going to be above around 61,800. But you would still need to see it closing above 62,800 to actually be valid. So again, all the criteria is coming up Yahtzee for the actual swing high from Thursday's candle. Needs to close above there. That will set in motion likely a move to at least search out for liquidity higher, even if it's just $500 to $1,000 higher, and I'll show you why in just a moment. 6-hour looking the same kind of criteria. Sloppy uptrend here. Don't really care for this kind of an uptrend, to be honest with you. Let's go ahead back to the daily here. Let's go ahead and get rid of Bollinger Bands for just a moment here, just to have a little bit of visual interest there, and then we'll actually talk about them for a minute. Let's go ahead and turn on the chart that's going to kind of set our conditions here. So here on the daily, we can see that in the lower term time frames. So when I talk about closes, you can gauge the closes on the daily is what this is based on. But if you start seeing lower term time frames closing above specific levels intraday, then you look to the next level. I mean, you can go even down to the hourly and look at the bottom that was formed down here and how it interacted with each level. Once it started to regain this level, came back down, sat on some local support and resistance for this hourly time frame, moved through the level, closed above it, used it as support, tried to move up, found it as support again, lost it, sat under it for a while, and then moved up to the next level. And then you see that it rejected initially and then tried to move up, successfully got into this level, and then it's been playing around the 60,000 to 60,500 area for a little bit. So, one of the main levels that Bitcoin is in right now is that overhead resistance now from this 60,200 to 300 area. You could even call it $60,000 even, as it is oscillating around this level, around the $60,000 number, with the top side of this particular resistance at 63,800. And remember what I said on Wednesday, the reason why there's gaps in this chart is because I want to see dailies closing above here to then move up my overhead resistance or area of interest to the upside of where I'm going to start targeting. And you can see, inside of this level, we've encompassed, this high that was hit, right? Perfectly spiked at that, just about perfectly spiked. It's about as perfect as you're going to get with spot price action on an asset that trades at $62,000 or $60,000 and above. 62,800 being tested. If it can start to move up above there, be aware of about $1,000 higher to around 63,800. If we start seeing closes above there, then we can raise that target of overhead resistance in this case to be the 65.5 area. And of course, that's the wick high over here. And you'll see that there is a close open just above this level here. But I'm taking the most relevant price action. So this was more recent than this close open. But this wick high is significant. It held up between this high and the 67,272, which is the next level up above 65.5. Then I'm looking at this as it was a key level of support. For the highs at $72,000, that double top there. It was also a key area that we saw Bitcoin trying to stay in when it topped out here at $68,000 to $70,000. So this is going to be a key zone of interest above 63,800 on daily closes. Intraday, it could trade above there and, of course, hit some of those upside targets. But if it closes back in at that 63.8, then the closer it is to 63.8, then starts to get above it in lower term timeframes, you look up. And then, relative to what's going on your chart, the lower term timeframes, if it's closing below it, then you look down. And of course, the major levels within the 63.8 to 60,000, 60,200 to 300 level are going to be key. Now, if this level is lost, keep an eye on Friday's wick low. This is going to be important because this plays in with trend. If we do see a closure below Friday's wick low, this will be a lower high. And then that would make sure, 100% sure, we would be 100% sure rather, that this is the lower high that needs to be beat, at least for now, to change trend, right? So we would have, a lower low, lower high. We've got a downtrend confirmed at that point, not just a trend break or a deviation of trend. So closes below 59,500 would do that. So any close below 59,500, this high is set, not just on the swing, which is set now. The swing high is set at 62,755, but then the closing high would be set, which is a little bit more powerful in terms of reading trend. And that would come in around 59,550. So closes below there. I would be targeting back to 58.4. Anywhere below there, and I'm starting to look right back down to the 55,800 level. That is the top side of our danger zone down here. This is now our risk zone. We had to move it down. It was 58,400 to around 60,300 or so before. It was where this gap is, but now the risk zone is the 58.4 to this 55,850, which is the close open over here. Any closes below there, I'm looking for the lows on a close to get tested somewhere around, $54,000 to $55,000. Some of the areas in between here. If that, is dropped, we're looking to the bottom side of the zone at 53.5. Anywhere below there, I'm looking for distribution target 1, which is 53 to 50 again. Anywhere below 50, I'm looking for the actual low of this current move at $49,000 to get ran into possibly that monthly down there, which is the $48,000. So I do want to note that although I showed you in the beginning of the video, towards the first half of the video, I should say, looking for, a high to be set or a lower high and then a higher lower equal low. Well, that's provided the trend's going to turn around. So to give you an example, and please don't read this as this is my expectation. This is pure LARP lines here. So Again, I want to draw this out, but I do want to kind of illustrate this because the concept was new to some people. Essentially, what I'm looking for is the lower high, and then let's say it comes down into this zone and scares the absolute crap out of everyone. That's bullish. This, let's say it did something like that. Then I would be looking for, a higher low either here or around here, or maybe even here on the high side. If it's going to do a closing high here, if it's a closing high, then maybe it puts in a higher low here, here, somewhere in here, or an equal low. Comes down and swings the lows down here. Then this is the lower high that you want to see broken from there. Still would be, if it went all the way down here, I'd be looking for subsequent lower highs. Still a little bit easier to take out for the bulls there, but this would be your essentially your reversal in this case. But if it breaches this low here, then we're just looking for continuation, right? So if we put in a lower high and it busts through all these levels and heads down into, target 2 of distribution here on the daily, that would be, the 48, essentially what I call the 48 to 45 level. Electrical cost is now inside of $45,000. I think I'm going to show you the electrical chart here because we do typically check on this. So I'm going to warn you, I'm going to switch over to it. It is a white chart. All right. 45,239 is the electrical cost. So that is coming up. That's actually what you want to see. So we'll call this 45,200 on the coordinates here. That is what you want to see. That actually gives me the look of kind of based on the network and price, that if we're gonna see this area maintained, if we're gonna see this hold up, then this is likely the low that it's set. That doesn't mean it's going to be, but this is more than likely the low here at that $49,000, just below our target one of distribution. Again, I'm not looking for daily distribution until I see daily closes, and that's where I'm looking for a more long form reaccumulation structure. So I'd be looking for something essentially like this. Let's go ahead and, if it starts to close below 53,500, the bottom side of our danger zone, I'm looking for, reaccumulation inside of target 1, go and sweep that low, possibly even touch into target 2 of distribution, but I'd be looking for reaccumulation, somewhere in and above. Maybe it goes down and touches electrical cost as it continues to move up, if it continues to move up, because we do have to keep an eye on it because it could go down. Right now, Bitcoin is testing around 60,300, the bottom side of my recovery zone. If it loses it, I would entertain moves down to that 58,400 or somewhere in between on the lower term timeframes. Let's match this up with our bands that we saw earlier, and you can kind of see how this analysis, trend, support, and resistance, which is what we're looking at now, kind of syncs up with our look on volatility. So in this case, the lower first standard deviation is again right there at the 58,600 level. So it's right around 58,400. And when evaluating volatility, you utilize support and resistance first. And then if it were to, for instance, break down from the 60,300 level, $60,000 or so, starts to drop below Friday's wick low here at 59,550, then I'm looking to the lower first, right? So because we have basically a range between from a volatility perspective between the basis and lower first right now. If it starts to close below the lower first, and of course break down from that support there at 58,400, then from a volatility standpoint, I'd be looking down to, as long as it's trading below there, I'd be looking down to that 55,850, which is the bottom side of the risk zone and the top side of the danger zone, all on one level there. And from a volatility standpoint, that gives price the ability to come back down and retest this lower second standard deviation at minimum. And that's inside of our danger zone there, which would also give us, anywhere below the lower second. We've got to watch out for that 53,500. That's coming in around 54 200. So we have confluence with our levels of volatility or levels of interest for volatility as it relates to the actual support levels down below price right now. And the same goes for the upside. As long as Bitcoin is holding above that 60,000 to 60,300 from a volatility standpoint, the top side is the play, right? The basis, right where the high is coming in, just slightly above it. I would be aware of swing highs into the daily basis band, which is a 20 simple, which is at $63,000 right now. So $200 above the local swing high on lower term timeframes. And of course, the daily as it relates to Friday's closure and wick low. In this case, as long as it's in this zone, 63.8 is the overhead resistance within the zone, just above the basis band. If we start to see it close above there, then guess where we're looking? We're looking right up here to 65.5 to 67.272, and that just so happens to be the upper first standard deviation. Of course, close above there, we've got 68 to 70,200 or so, right around the top here. And then above there, it's the run the high zone by the upper second standard deviation. So these things typically do line up with each other over time. And you're looking for the confluence because you're not just looking at one indicator or one metric, of trend, support and resistance, volatility, or momentum, which we're going to look at in just a moment to wrap things up. You're looking at the confluence between all of those things. And the last thing to look at on the daily here is that momentum, and we're going to talk about the weekly, and I'll let you go. Momentum on the daily is going to be pointed to the upside on closes above $53,000. So it's right around the criteria where if it closed below there, we're looking at that target one of distribution between $53,000 and $50,000 anyway, and then going to retest the lower low of the current move at $49,000. So if it can close above there over the weekend, you want to see some consolidation that starts to regain the top side, because otherwise this could catch up to price and start to turn bearish. Of course, trend is going to be more important at that point on the medium-term timeframes below the daily, but it's something to watch over the weekend. You can get a free momentum indicator. This is a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. This is a paid version. This is from Eric Crown over there at KVDB made that one. There's plenty of free ones, but that one's got a lot of other stuff that I use that I don't talk about, it's got an ADX and DMI and like all that kind of stuff that I actually really like that he had his developers build in there, or KVDB built into that indicator. But there's a free version of indicators like a regular Stoke that has pivot numbers, if that's all you want to look for. This one is just called the Reverse Stoke Panel. Just search for Reverse Stoke Panel and your indicators tab there. It's free, and it's going to have the same number. Just you'll have to customize it if you want it to look like mine. But in this case, yeah, as long as it's trading above there, it's pressure to the upside. But I will note that the 2-day is going to be pressure down, 3-day is pressure down, 4-day is pressure down. We don't really care about these pivots. It's really about the weekly. 5-day we should talk about. This is going to close on, what is it? It's going to close on Monday or Tuesday's candle. So we're going to have to come back to this. We want to see it close in about 59,500, which is where, coincidentally, yesterday's wick low came in, or today, if you're still living on Friday with me. Bitcoin's living in the future. 53,800 is going to be the weekly momentum pivot. And let's quickly break this down. Bitcoin is in a weekly downtrend. For those that maybe haven't seen me do this before or somebody else do this before, we'll just take the last swing low to swing high, and you can see that this is a swing downtrend. It's also a closing downtrend though. So it's still a downtrend. Downtrend's intact. This was yet another lower high, lower low. So one of the things I want to note about the weekly though, really quick here, is that this is a potential coming into next week, and something that I want you to pay attention to as we come into the weekly close. If Bitcoin could close above the lower first here, that would look really good. So we've got a downtrend, and you'll see that we have closing high, closing higher low, closing lower high, lower low on a close, lower high on a swing and a close. We already know the swings are downtrending, but lower high close. We could potentially see a higher low close if Bitcoin were to close next week's candle above this week's high here at that 62,755. So what would be encouraging is to see Bitcoin trading and closing the weekly candle above the lower first for volatility. That's at $60,822. That would look good. You do not want to see this closing below the lower second. I will tell you that, bulls. If you see this closing anywhere on Sunday below 56,800 or so, it's going to look real bad. That would start to really initiate expansion down. Of course, we still have to look at the close open down here at 55,850 to the wick lows down here at 53,500 and that lower third just below there at 52,800. So basically, essentially $53,000 between those two areas. But that would start to paint the picture that we're looking for a more long form reaccumulation at minimum on the daily that could lead into a little bit more testing of the downside and the current low. So again, on the weekly, you want to see it closing above 60,822, 850 or so. And you don't want to see it closing below 56,800 or so. And then what we watch for on next week, and I'll talk about on Monday, is if it does close, like let's say here or higher, but doesn't take out this wick high. If we were to see it close above this wick high, this would actually be a closing higher low with a lower low swing. This would actually start to look a little bit like we could get some playback to the upside for the weekly here. It wouldn't be divergence because this is really it kind of would be divergence, but it would not be in trend bullish divergence. But this would start to look like it would want to at least put in a higher low and a close and run the highs again. So that is going to be something that I'm going to be watching for as we come into the weekly close and into next week. But yeah, you have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. Look for me in the Spaces events. I got one this weekend with NBO. That's New Bitcoin Order. Myself and Loki will be on a Spaces event on Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Monday, I've got my show that I'm going to do. It's Landy's Crypto Corner. That Spaces event's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I've got three cool guests that are going to be coming on as speakers. So keep an eye on the timeline. I will have a teaser promo thing going up here pretty soon. All right, take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. Landy out.